Welcome to the Village Talks podcast. This is a space where physiology meets lived experience, where we talk honestly about the body, the nervous system, relationships, and the real questions families are asking without fear-based narratives or one-size-fits-all answers. We're your hosts. I'm Dr. Jaimy.
And I'm Dr. Brittany. We're chiropractors, perinatal specialists, and humans who work closely with families through preconception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and early parenthood. Whether you're preparing for pregnancy, currently pregnant, newly postpartum, raising a little one, or supporting someone who is, you're in the right place.
Let's get into today's conversation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of the Village Talks podcast. Thanks for listening and thanks for joining. Today, I'm really excited about this topic, and I know Dr. Jaimy is too, but we will be talking about what happens to the brain in pregnancy and postpartum. We're going to tie in how it's closely related, what happens with neuroplasticity, what parts of the brain are being changed as you go through this time and why. And our hope and our goal with this episode is to reframe pregnancy brain and mom brain into a really positive way of thinking about it, because sometimes it gets written off of just like, it's just pregnancy brain, but it's actually something really cool that happens. And I'm really excited to get this topic out there. And so let's just jump right into it. Yay.
Yeah, we've heard the phrases baby brain or mom brain for decades.
Yeah.
Like they've been around, and it's something that I think as parents we recognize. I think people that, midwives and doulas, people in the birth community, like, yeah, we see it. It's a real thing.
Yep.
But now there's science to kind of support to show us what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Not that we need science to tell us like, yes, this is real. Like we
Yeah.
know it's real, but it is cool to begin to understand the reasoning behind it.
Yep. And the validation too,
Yes.
that we like, I promise I'm not going crazy. Like there is
Yeah.
something happening, and now we can like kind of put words to it in a scientific way without it being like a old wives' tale kind of thing.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be super sciencey. Like we'll probably get a little sciencey, but I think for the average person, I do think it can be validating to understand that like this is a part of the physiological process.
Yep.
There are reasons for it. And even though it sometimes can be a little bit frustrating, like it's headed somewhere, it's happening for a reason, and it is this specific time in your life because of the physiological and hormonal changes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely something I know I touch on sometimes with our clients in the practice when it pops up, but it's not something I'm constantly educating about, which I want to create that little bit of a shift somewhere along the line, because it is one of those things where it can be rather disempowering when you're like, I can't even remember what I did yesterday, and I don't know where I put my keys, and all these things. Like I wrote a list down because I can't keep things straight, and like that can be really overwhelming and things like that too. So for not just the woman, the person who's pregnant, but for the partners as well, to understand like what's actually happening in the brain for their partners is really empowering, I think, because then they have a better understanding of like, okay, like, yes, I know her body's doing a lot of work, but like, no, like her body's actually really doing a lot of work, and here's how I can be supportive.
Yeah.
I think that is a really great frame and a great lens to look at it from.
Yep. And it's not just the lower half of her body that's changing and doing a lot of work, right? It's not just, oh yeah, you're growing a baby, which in and of itself is nothing short of a miracle, but we get a little bit flippant about it because it is something that we see literally every day. And even with a first pregnancy, as the pregnancy progresses, there can be a little bit less novelty to it. And it's like, it's happening in the background. Like you're just going about your life and your body's growing a baby. And it's like, well, yes. And
that's huge.
Yes, it's huge. And I think especially for our particular patient population, we are seeing a fair number of professional women. We are seeing women who are having babies maybe a little bit later. And so they have started a career path. So when you've got somebody who is used to being on, right, and showing up for partners, showing up for their job, and they typically do remember things. They are organized.
They're reliable.
Yes. And then all of a sudden, baby brain kicks in, and it creates a shift in that part of your identity that can be very disempowering, and be like, how did I forget about that meeting? I never forget about meetings. How did I forget about this appointment? Like, it was on my calendar and I knew it was there, and then I still forgot to show up. Right. It's frustrating, and not just from a like, oh, I forgot my appointment, I'm bummed out I missed it perspective, but from like, it can feel like a failure in who you are. Absolutely. Right. And it's a shift that most people don't welcome or appreciate.
Yeah. Well, right. It like turns into the brain fog and the fatigue and all that. And you're like, I just want to feel like myself again. I just want to feel normal again. And again, like you said, when you're used to being on all the time and being somebody who's organized and reliable, and that, like, it is a huge identity shift. Yep. But I feel like now, with a little bit more understanding of what's happening and why, we can have a little bit more grace with ourselves in this process.
Yes. And maybe be a little bit more proactive in trying to support our bodies in a way that is going to promote brain function as much as we can. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Like, you know, again, it's another thing. It's like, oh yeah, drink lots of water. Like, it isn't just because it's Colorado. It's not just because it's like, all of your systems are relying on something as simple as hydration. Yeah. Right. And if you are even slightly dehydrated, most of what we hear is, you know, joint aches, muscle tension, leg cramps, stuff like that. And like, I mean, if you're dehydrated, there's brain shrinkage. Like it's everything,
and your fascia gets tight and everything like that. And we can maybe do an episode on how that impacts fascia for birth. Yeah, because if you're super dehydrated too, your tissues aren't going to be as expansive. Yeah. Anyway,
but it's so part of it is give yourself some grace. Like there's a reason for it, and there isn't really anything you can do to avoid it. There isn't. But there are things that can make it worse. Yep. Right. So there are things you can do. Like if you feel like you're experiencing really bad baby brain, or it is impacting your job in a way that's not sustainable for you to keep working until you have your baby. You know, I mean, this can be something that is having a huge impact. I think for most people, it's annoying. It's an irritation. It can be frustrating,
inconvenient.
But for some people, you know, it can make it near impossible to do their job. Yep. To show up for their partner and their other kiddos. So we can get into the science, and then maybe at the end just kind of drop in some stuff for here's some things to try that might help.
Right. It's not a one size fits all. What works for people is very different depending on what our life is like, what our environment is like, blah. There's so many other things, right? But I think just having, like I said earlier, like having better understanding and a reframe of it can be really helpful too. Because your brain shrinks when you're pregnant. It does. You lose gray matter in your brain and certain aspects of your brain, like the prefrontal cortex and things like that. And there's a reason for that, because there is something called neurological pruning. And that's essentially what's happening in the brain, where we have all of these nerve connections, all of these synapses that are basically these big connections here. And then your body, when you're pregnant, I heard a really great midwife talk about, you know, sometimes we feel really hormonal and stuff, and like these changes are triggered by hormones, right? But sometimes in pregnancy we can feel overwhelmed by those hormones that like we're really not clear and all that kind of stuff. But she was like, actually it feels so off because you're the most clear you've ever been. Yes. And I'm like, ooh, that's a great shift and reframe for it.
Yes. Well, priorities are shifting. So yes, that pruning is, we have to prioritize which neurons we're going to need in this next phase.
Exactly.
Versus making room for and streamlining which neurons do we not have that we're going to need, right? Because it does come down to those processes. And we do need more empathy. We do need more vigilance of our surroundings to keep our tiny human alive, right? So there are parts of our brain that are just become a little bit less important in this phase, at least from like a primal perspective.
And that's the key point there too,
Mhm.
right? It's like, this is, even though our society is very modern and we have all this stuff, our nervous system and how our body functions is still very, very primal.
Mhm.
And all of these changes are happening from that primal level that a lot of people are pretty disconnected from.
Yeah.
And so when it happens to, like, with them, to them, however they want to frame it, it's like, this is a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to feel about this
Yeah.
kind of situation.
And I think our perception is hormonal,
Mhm.
right? Or emotional.
Yep.
But it's also like, we're looking at the hormones, we're looking at neurotransmitters, we're
Mhm.
looking at, again, some of these we need less of,
Yep.
and some of them we need more of.
Yep.
And so it is this complete rewiring of our system so that our brain can operate in an entirely different capacity.
Yeah.
And this is, I think this, we are, one of our recent episodes, we talked a lot about the identity shift. Like,
Mhm.
we didn't really talk about this in that,
Yeah.
because we had this as a separate topic, but that's part of not feeling like yourself,
Totally.
right? And not feeling normal, because yes, like your brain chemistry is shifting.
Mhm.
And so it is this phase of like, why can't I remember that? Because your brain decides you don't need it anymore.
Yeah. That's
Like,
not what's important
it's
right
not
now.
actually what's important right now, which again
Yeah.
is hard when, when you're pregnant, you're not caring for a newborn. For the
Mhm.
most part, you are going about your normal life. You are still showing up at your job and trying to do what you were doing before.
Yeah.
You are still trying to maintain your schedule
Mhm.
with your family or your kids.
Yep.
Your life hasn't fully shifted.
Mhm.
There is that dramatic shift that happens at birth, but that cannot happen that quickly in the brain. It
Yep.
has to be this gradual process.
Yeah.
And so it is just kind of this weird, clumsy sort of fumble through pregnancy of like, where did it go? Like,
Yeah.
the word just flew away from my brain. Or like, how did I forget that I committed to doing this thing or being at this place?
Mhm.
And your brain is like, yeah, nah,
Yep.
we're growing a baby, just chill.
Yeah. Like, we're doing a lot of work
Yeah.
as it is, right?
Yeah.
And does take a lot of energy, right? And so, like, yeah, parts of the gray matter that we see, and none of this is bad. Your brain shrinking and us losing gray matter, it's not a bad thing. It's your body preparing for this entire shift that you have to make in order to keep your baby alive.
Yes. The shrink isn't permanent.
Exactly. It comes back. We'll talk about
Yes.
it. But your prefrontal cortex, right, is part of your decision making and your emotional regulation and your planning and your social awareness and things like that. So that is one of the parts of the brain that gets impacted. Your amygdala also gets impacted. In pregnancy, it actually, I think in postpartum, closer to it gets a little bit, it grows a little bit, because now, like you said, you have to be a little bit more aware of your surroundings. Women in general are really aware of their surroundings for the most part, because we have to be. But when it comes to being a parent, specifically for the mom, the one who is growing the baby, like, this is happening in their body specifically, not necessarily the dad, the partner, the spouse who's not, because it's a different neurochemistry that's happening. And so we'll talk about that too, because sometimes that disconnection happens. Like, well, like, I don't understand why you feel this way, and like why you're so, how does it get worded? Hypervigilant, and why do you have so much anxiety, and why are you worrying so much? And it's like, she has no other choice, because literally her brain is doing this for her,
right?
Because she has to keep a human alive.
Yes.
Especially for breastfeeding too. They're that baby's survival. And babies don't know that they're really separate from their mom until 3 months, roughly. And so they are all interconnected in that co-regulation together. And so this has to happen, right? Our amygdala is what does threat detection, emotional salience, and like those protective instincts and the fear and anxiety and all that. Like, that has to be a part of it, because again, on a very primal level, stress is stress to the body. It doesn't matter if we got in a car accident or it's a tiger. Like, it's perceived very similarly. Obviously they're very different experiences, but on that primal level, that protection piece of it is the same thing.
Yeah.
And then the hippocampus also gets impacted in that gray matter, which is it shrinks a little bit. We kind of lose it. We start pruning, and that is memory and learning and stress regulation, which is why things get a little bit more heightened in pregnancy because, and in postpartum too, because we're shifting and molding and creating a whole different way of thinking for our brain. Yeah.
Well, and that fuzziness too. I mean, I think most people can look back on those first few weeks and they're like, it's a blur. Yeah. Because you don't, as much as we want to sort of commit some of that to memory because it goes so quickly, I also think it might keep us from having child after child after child if we very vividly remember the challenges of the first few weeks.
Absolutely.
Like memory's not important at that time, right? The focus will shift. And I think the other thing too is like, we talk about the different parts of the brain and what they do, but when we look at hormones and one of the most prominent hormones pregnancy, birth for sure, and immediately afterwards is oxytocin. I'm just like, it's the love hormone. I'm like, it's the intensity hormone.
Yes.
So yes, it does make you feel love more intensely. It also makes you feel your anxiety more intensely, right?
It's a really great way to put that.
It on purpose intensifies everything. And so all of the good things, awesome, but it also is why we do see so much postpartum anxiety, why we have this constant, like, yes, it's the hypervigilance. That's like the perfect word of where's the baby? Who's got the baby? Is the baby okay? Is the baby breathing? Does the baby need to eat? Does everything's about, your brain is doing that. You don't even have to think about it. That is now on autopilot for the rest of your life. And so it takes any of the anxiety or some of those less than positive feelings and it intensifies those as well. Absolutely. And so it's just like everything is so intense when oxytocin is high and it needs to be, right? Biologically, from the primal standpoint, like, yes, you should be feeling this intense, insane, incomparable love for this baby because you got to keep it alive. But also, when we look at what we shouldn't perceive as a threat, but literally every single person coming in that wants to hold the baby, even a partner, is like, all right. Like it's all of it. It intensifies everything. And all that's happening while your brain is also trying to come back online. In the hormone soup. So I think when you think back to, I don't think most of us remember puberty well, but having two teenagers, I have tried very hard to empathize and remember the irrationality of the time. And that's really the only way to describe it, is like your brain is floating in hormones and you just kind of become irrational. Like you're like, I'm crying because I'm so happy because I love this baby and this feels ridiculous. But also you're like, no, you can't hold my baby. Like, it's this very like, why am I like, clearly this person is not just going to grab my baby and run. They're not going to shake my baby. Like, why do I not feel okay letting this person I trust hold my baby? It's irrational, but it's real and it's what happens.
A purpose. Like that's the biggest thing. Like, I want people to remember that this isn't a punishment for having a baby. This isn't like a way to just like further punish women in their lives and like we have to do periods and all this stuff. Like I want to really reframe this in a very positive way. It is structural refinement for your brain. So you can have the mother instinct. The way I describe it is our pregnancy brain, the baby brain, turns into the motherly instinct, that maternal instinct where you are sleeping and baby's either in the bed with you or in the bassinet or something like that. And baby is making all of these noises and you're awake and your partner is dead asleep. And you're like, how are you not hearing these noises? Like, what? How did you got a great night's sleep. Awesome. Well, I was awake all night, like listening to our baby because your brain is now rewiring so you can be more attuned to your baby to keep them alive. That's why it's there. I always, when we have pregnant patients complaining about baby brain and I'm like, oh, mom brain is so much worse. Like it's just, and everything that's happening in pregnancy, it's absolutely not a punishment, right? Everything that's happening in pregnancy is to set you up for success as a new parent, right? So that these things, your body is going to be able to do them naturally. Is it annoying to be woken up by every little sound they make? Yeah. But,
it's also necessary because what if the baby needs something? What if the baby needs something? What if the baby needs something? Over time, it does refine.
Yeah.
Right? When your 1 week old is squeaking all night, you're probably not sleeping despite being completely exhausted. But by 3 months, your brain knows those noises and knows which noises to ignore and allow you to remain asleep and which noises you need to be alerted to. So you wake up and you meet your baby's needs, right?
Absolutely.
So it is this ongoing refinement. But I think the hypervigilance doesn't stop. And that's the thing that is this constant background noise distraction that I think makes mom brain permanent and challenging in a way that most people haven't experienced before, because it continues to shift, right? So there's that from 0 to 3 months. Now I can sleep through these noises. Well, then I'm going back to work or I'm leaving baby with a sitter. But every moment that your eyes are not on your baby, your brain can't smell or hear your baby, some part of your brain is going, where's the baby? Where's the baby? Where's the, where's the kid? Where's the kid? They're at school. They're safe. They're at school. They're safe. Like it's this ongoing, your brain chemistry is permanently changed. And I was like, you're never getting 100% of your brain back. I'm sorry. Like it's going to get bigger and it's going to do good things, but at least like 1% of it is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to decide if the baby's okay.
Yep. And your babies, whether they're 1 week old or 17 years old, they're still your babies.
Or 40 years old.
Yeah. Like, right, like they're still your babies.
Yes.
And so that, like you said, like it never goes away.
It never goes away. It continues to change.
Yep. And it's not, again, none of this is bad. I like how you said it. It's setting you up for success. And I feel like when we understand why it's happening, especially in like an age of information right now where everyone's kind of bombarded with all these different things coming at them, they don't know how to discern which is what. And so like just having this understanding of like, oh, okay, like I can have a little bit more grace. It's setting me up so I can be the best parent I can be to help support my baby the best that I can. That reframe I think is great, because when it comes to the shrinking aspect of it, it happens in pregnancy. But what the research is showing, there's one in Nature Neuroscience in 2016 that came out. And then there's 2 new ones that there was one where a woman in pregnancy, and then I think it was 2 years postpartum, she was doing MRIs of her brain to see what was changing and what was coming back and how it grew and how fast and all that kind of stuff. Around 6 months is when majority of the gray matter grew back, but it took up to 2 years. And we know from being in the space for so long, you longer than me, but postpartum recovery is 2 years. There's a reason why the WHO recommends breastfeeding your baby if you can for up to 2 years and all that kind of stuff. Like postpartum is that full recovery is roughly a 2-year process.
And having 2 years between pregnancies, if you can, to restore the nutrients, to get your brain back to its baseline. Like, that timing doesn't always work for everybody. And it doesn't mean if you're not doing that it's wrong or that your second baby's not going to be healthy. But when we look at just the sheer amount of time that these processes take naturally, it is a good chunk of time. So the good news is it does come back, right? And we do hear, there's this range. So you do have some people who at 6 months are really feeling a lot like themselves, maybe physically, but not mentally. And some people are like, I feel like myself mentally, but not physically. Because I do think there are I think most people now have some pretty clear expectations of how their body is going to change in pregnancy, right? Like we certainly focus on that a lot because it's so much of what we do. But I even feel like with a lot of the prenatal education that's out there, a lot of the conversations that are happening between providers and patients are heavily centered around the physical changes. I don't think there's a lot of conversation around the brain. I feel like it comes up naturally for us because at some point everybody's going to say something like, it's baby brain or it's pregnancy brain or, I'm sorry, I forgot my appointment last week. I think it does come up naturally for us, but we're not always kind of diving into the concept of it and explaining it fully because it is a big deal. It is a broad concept. It does, you look at through full pregnancy, we're talking 3 years, right? Of changes here. Like it takes time for the change to happen. And then that the brain doesn't go back to where it was before, like size wise, right? The shrinkage has resolved and we've grown new neurons. But again, that brain you have 2 years postpartum is not the brain you had before you got pregnant.
Yep. And it's the same, right, with your body. And we had an episode, right, on the like 6-week bounce back kind of stuff. But like, this is why, one of the many reasons why we kind of harp on like, it is not 6 weeks and that's it for postpartum, because it's not just the physical changes, it's the mental changes. But in pregnancy, you don't really have to think about what's happening. Like, your body's growing a human and you're doing the thing and you're like, okay, great. Like, I feel it. Like, I know things are happening. Obviously, like, some of this is really intense and like these changes are happening, but you don't have to consciously tell your body to do it. Postpartum is both. Your body is doing this stuff kind of on autopilot, but then you also have to now consciously think of, okay, how do I move again with my abs not fully engaged yet and my pelvic floor not quite where it was before, and my organs are now like finding their spot in this new body of mine. And now I have to think about keeping my newborn alive, and what about my milk supply, and am I getting enough sleep, and am I hydrating, all that. Like, now it becomes this really big process where we're like constantly having to think about some stuff too. Plus our body's also recovering. And everybody hits a point where they have to think about sort of that next stage, right? So for most people, if you have kind of a clearly defined maternity leave, for example, then there can be a phase where you just focus on healing and you focus on connecting. But at some point, then your brain has to start to shift to, I've got to go back to work. Like, how the hell am I going to go back to work? Right. Because there is absolutely this sense of like, I'm not the same person. My brain isn't the same. And the thought of like tomorrow going back to, you know, the office for 8 or 9 hours, or the hospital for a 12-hour shift, or whatever your job is you're just like, holy hell, like, how am I even going to do that? And so it is, and even if you're not going back to work, there's still like, okay, now I feel healed, or I feel like I want to go engage in the world again. I want to be social. I want to exercise. I want to, like, there is this kind of, 3 to 4 months for most people. There is this re-engagement with the world outside of your home and your little nuclear family. And that's, it's the person emerging into the world, and how your brain processes the world as a whole has changed really dramatically. Like, suddenly going to the grocery store isn't just, I'm going to run and grab a few things and make sure that there's not a windowless van parked really close to me. Now it's, I can't leave the baby unattended or out of my sight, but I also can't leave my purse unattended or out of sight. Like, it's just, it is this new level of hypervigilance, hyper awareness, constant threat perception, and then emotional connection, because you also see another mom with a new baby. And you're, like, it's, it is still, I think things are still really, really heightened, and that can make it really hard to go back to some of the things that you did before and engage in them in the same way, because your ability to focus is altered, because your brain is like, this is not important. But another part of your brain is like, no, but this is important. Like, this is my job. This is my career. I love this. I care about this. I support my family. Like, there can be a little bit of not just internal struggle with our emotions, but I think even within the brain, sometimes there's a little bit of like, well, but this part, and sometimes that it's two opposing ideas, it's two opposing needs, it's and that's just in your own brain. That's not even taking into consideration the people around you and your partner and the other people that are involved in your day to day. So I think that having an understanding of like, this is challenging, right? But also this is a process. Like, this can be a normal part of this process that as we move through each of these stages of parenthood, and understanding that biologically your body is working to support this. You need to support your body to facilitate this growth and this change, because it needs to happen. It's got to happen. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. And whatever we can do to kind of get to, that next phase where, okay, now we've mastered this and we feel really good about this. And this is really comfortable. but then, then there'll be the next thing.
Yep.
And I think that, we have many episodes where we talk about postpartum support and postpartum recovery. In the background of all of that is what's happening in the brain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And coming from the premise of our profession is, how is the nervous system functioning? Because it is impacted by everything around it, both external and internal. And so ways that you can support these changes in your pregnancy and in postpartum too is, I think, like craniosacral is huge in pregnancy and huge in postpartum too. And we do that here in our LCA.
Yeah.
But to be able to support the changes that are happening within, your body physically, but nervous system wise too. I mean, the number of times that we do cranial sessions on some of our clients and they come out like, oh, wow, that's what you do on our babies? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it's really great, isn't it?
It's just a total reset. I think that's, when we talk about oxytocin and how it intensifies things, like we also have to look at like, what is your capacity in that moment? What is your nervous system's capacity to handle stress?
Yeah.
And so if you are living in that fight or flight, you are living in an upregulated or dysregulated state in terms of your nervous system, your ability, your capacity to handle any additional stress, any additional change is significantly lower.
Yep.
And so, that's, while these things are going to happen in the background, that shouldn't feel like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to have baby brain. I'm just going to have mom brain. I'm just going to forget things. That the more you can do to regulate and maintain a resting state for your nervous system, the better you're able to handle those changes. Like that is absolutely a way to ensure that. There are other ways, I think, to regulate nervous system as well. But for us, like craniosacral is for our patients, it's passive for them. And I think some people are good about maintaining their own routines and doing this themselves. And for a lot of people, it's not happening.
No.
They don't know how to do it, or they find it difficult to prioritize it in their otherwise busy schedule. And so their time with us, like we had somebody this week who was like here for their adjustment, like, this is my self-care this week. I'm like, awesome.
Yep.
Like, talk about a powerhouse 20 minutes, right? Like, you're going to feel better physically. We're going to regulate your nervous system. We're probably going to have a conversation about some things that are stressing you out. Like, we're going to tick a bunch of boxes in this time frame. But this can be something that is passive and is still doing your body good. And I think in our current society, we don't give enough credit to rest. People talk about sleep.
Yep.
Like, I think most of us realize that sleep is important. It doesn't mean we're prioritizing it. It doesn't mean we have a consistent bedtime and a consistent wake time and we're doing all of that. But let's assume that we are. Then we also have to look at just rest.
Yeah.
Right? That how often do we sit in quiet? How often are we really off of screens? How often are we in a comfortable place, in a place that is dark, in a place that is where we feel supported, right? Where there's literally no threat to our safety.
Yep.
There's nothing else we're supposed to be doing. Like, your brain and your nervous system need an opportunity to rest that is also separate from sleep. And I don't think very many people do that with any regularity. We are in a time where, for most people, I think almost every minute of every day is scheduled.
Yeah.
And if it's not, the default is to get on a phone and to scroll because it feels like downtime. It feels like disengagement because we're not doing anything, right? It's very passive, but we're getting a dopamine hit.
Yep.
But it is extremely stimulating, if not overstimulating, for the brain.
Yep.
Right? Your brain is not resting. Your body may be resting physically, right? Your heart rate, your respiratory rate may be low, but your brain is not at rest. Your brain, in fact, is being overstimulated, which is keeping you in the heightened fight or flight, right? Definitely. Even if it's not the tiger, your nervous system is still up here ready to respond to everything at the same time because you're sitting on your phone teaching it to be ready to respond every 3 seconds.
Yeah, seriously. That too. And too, like watching movies or shows and things like that too. Like, again, like you said, we might be at a physical laying down or sitting down on the couch or something like that and not like doing stuff, but you're also still doing something by watching TV and getting that input all the time. And we're not asking you to go sit in a dark room for 20 minutes. Like that's, I mean, if you want to, great, like take a nap or something.
Yeah.
But with all of these changes that are happening in the brain, the tolerance of what we used to be able to do changes, and what we used to be able to delegate and handle and like all that kind of stuff. We need to find, I really encourage couples to sit down and be like, okay, like we have to sit down and reevaluate what our values are, make sure that they're aligned. What am I doing in my day-to-day life that might actually be causing me more stress than harm? Like in our packets that we give all of our people on their second day, we have an entire page of what we call the 3 T's in chiropractic is thoughts, traumas, toxins. And we've added technology into that too. Yeah. But we have to kind of do this like mental audit of what's going on in our life to where it actually might be overwhelming us more than we thought it would, because we have kind of taught our society to just like, you just keep going, you keep being productive, you're growing a human, that's okay, like just keep doing what you're doing and contribute to society. Not really understanding that like growing a human and giving birth to that human and raising that human is like a huge contribution to society. Right, that is being very productive.
And I think it is, it's that constant productivity, right, that we're doing something, we're contributing something, anytime you're sitting and resting, I think there's, for a lot of people, there's guilt and shame around, but I'm not being productive.
Yeah.
And so I think, another thing that's in our packet are like, what are the things that you can do for your body every day, right? And hydration is on there and movement is on there and get a good night's sleep is on there. And you're not going to check all 10 boxes every day, but if you can get, 3 to 5 of them. And one of the things that's on there is meditation. And what I tell patients is like, you don't need a meditation pillow and you don't need monks oming in the background. Like this does not have to be formal. I said, this is you and your brain and 10 minutes of peace and quiet. And this can be in the shower. Don't turn on a podcast in the shower. Don't listen to music in the shower, right? Just be in the shower and just you and your baby and your thoughts, right? This can be on a meditation pillow. This can be anywhere, right? This can be when you get to work. Can you just shut your eyes and sit alone in your car for 10 minutes? Like anywhere in your day, any physical location, any position, this can happen. But it's just 10 minutes where your brain is not being bombarded by a lot of things. And I think again, in our current society, it's hard for people to sit still for 10 minutes with no stimulation. And if you are already somebody who's anxious, it's really hard because sometimes the anxious thoughts are what take over. And people are like, I'm not good at meditating, I can't clear my brain. I'm like, I'm sorry, meditation is not a clear brain. It's not no thoughts. We are humans. We have dreams. Like there is not a point where your brain is literally shut down. You're thinking about nothing. And like meditation is, I drifted off and started thinking about a work project. And I'm like, no, I'm supposed to be thinking about something else right now. Like, let me think about a feat. Like think of something that's calming and relaxing. And then your brain's going to drift again. And then you come back. And then it's going to drift over there. And then you come back. And sometimes sometimes meditation, you do get this crazy idea for a work project. It's like, that's okay. You're not sitting down going, I'm going to think about work for 10 minutes. No, you're sitting down going, I'm not going to think about anything on purpose. Where's my brain going to take me? And if it's taking these scary places, reel it back in, because that is where some people's brains go. And I think that's why some people they want the constant background noise and they want the constant chatter because they're a little bit uncomfortable with their thoughts. But I think that you're going to have a whole lot of time alone in your brain during your birth and in those postpartum days. And so, get a little bit familiar with it. You don't have to love that 10 minutes of meditation, but I think people are surprised by some of the things that come to them, some of the things that they think about. It's a practice. It takes practice. And if you're not good at it, like, it's fine. There's nobody's judging you. Nobody's inside your brain with you. If you're judging yourself,
it's a good practice to learn how not to.
Yes.
Well, and like the whole thing of it too, and why this is such an important conversation when we're talking about neuroplasticity in the brain and all the changes that are happening around this time, is for you to not just become more attuned to your baby, but also to become more aware of yourself and more connected with yourself. Because you said it in a previous episode, what happens in birth is, you know, the person you were prior to hitting that threshold of meeting your baby, that person has to completely change in order to welcome this baby earthside. It does feel kind of soul crushing, or like that ego death that a lot of like buzzwords are talking about right now, but it's true. And if you can find 10 minutes a time throughout your pregnancy, day to day, to sit with yourself and to sit with your baby, it actually helps you, one, have more grace with yourself, but do become more attuned to this entire process, but then also can emotionally regulate better too, because you took some time to slow down. Instead of feeling like everything is just happening to you all at once and you can't control it.
People talk a lot about, you know, maternal instincts and, you know, the things that, you know, your mom intuition and things like that with kids, right? And like that you'll have a sense when something's wrong, or you have a sense when kids need you, or like, you know, you start walking towards the baby's bedroom and then literally they cry 1 second before you open the door, right? Like, so that a lot of that happens along with the pruning. A lot of that happens with the hormonal changes. But I think that process, it's happening the whole time. And you know, when we're born, we have instincts, right? Like little kids, it's how potty training happens. Like it's these things like this, right? I think that as we go through our childhood and into adulthood, we are oftentimes ignoring our instincts, right? I think we are taught to tune out because, you know, you can only use the bathroom in between classes in school, or, you know, there's a little bit of like, oh, you know, you fell and you scraped your knee and it's like, oh, you're okay, brush it off, you know, because on it. And part of it is like, you know, we don't need to be crying for half an hour about every little scraped knee. Life goes on. But then it kind of also means that we're taught to ignore our pain, ignore our body signs, ignore because it's not convenient for everyone else or the schedule or society or So I think that we do spend so much of our lives tuning out. And I think pregnancy is an ideal time to begin tuning back in. And in that 10 minutes. So, I mean, so, you know, some, like if you do listen to, you know, some people are like, I need to listen to like a guided meditation. I'm like, that's okay. You can do that too. A lot of those do body scanning and have you check in with parts of your body. I'm like, you can do that. And other people are like, yeah, but then I get hung up in one spot. Then don't do a body scan meditation, right? Like, let's do something different. So it doesn't have to be anything specific, but it is such a good time to start tuning in because your body is going to change every day and your brain is going to change every day. And if you can start tuning in now, that will serve you well in being able to communicate what's happening with providers who are here to support you. It can help you communicate with your partner in labor. It can help you communicate with, you know, pediatricians and other people about your baby after they get here, because you are more inclined to trust that instinct and to trust that intuition if you've been practicing it for some period of time.
Definitely. Yeah. And the other thing I want to touch on too is for the partners, walking alongside them in this, to help them understand and actually have more reverence for this time. And when I say that, it's not just like, oh, well, she has pregnancy brain, like she can't remember. Like I hear it a good amount. And we don't want to minimize or belittle those things, because it is a huge thing that your partner is going through right now. Like the body is changing. Her body is changing in such a significant way. And it hits different for everybody.
That's what I just say. Like some people being like, oh, it's just baby brain is a real trigger. And other people, for other people saying something like, well, your brain is going through a profound change. And they're like, shut up. That's a trigger. Everybody needs something different.
It's so different. Right. And how partners can support during this time is checking in with them and saying like, hey, how did your week go? How did your day go? And it's not so much like, tell me about your day because I know you like to talk about your day kind of stuff. It's like, no, where can you find where she might be more stressed and she's not giving that off like she is, and she's just trying to say, I'm fine, everything's okay, because that's what she's been taught to do, and that's what our society tells people do. Don't be too much in pregnancy. We're going to talk about that. But like, this is where you can really step in as a partner and be like, okay, I know that her body and her brain are going through all of these different changes. How can I support? And it's not saying you take everything off of her plate. That's not what we're saying. But maybe we hire a house cleaner. So both of you can still do what you need to do, show up really well for each other, but maybe we take something off of your plate where you both can still connect with each other, and then you can help support her in some way, right, that she needs. The other side of it too is you have to remember, again, she's becoming very hypervigilant about her safety, and that includes you. Are you a safe partner? Are you a safe father? Are you a safe roommate, maternal figure, whatever that looks like? Like, she is going through all of these checklists pretty much subconsciously. Like, she's not doing it intentionally. Like you said earlier, like, they inherently trust you. That's why they decide to have a baby with you for the most part. But at the same time, in nature, a lot of times the motherly figure sometimes has to fight off the alpha male and things like that. So that is still happening in their brain. And so if you're more of a jokester in your relationship and like that kind of stuff, like, this is going to sound really bad, but my partner is hilarious and I love him dearly. But there's a quote from a movie. Like there's a quote from a movie and he's like, you're just a girl with a tiny brain. Like, like, and we'll say that sometimes and it's a joke, but
mine will say things like, well, but it's because you're a girl. It's an absolute joke. And I know he doesn't mean it.
But in those types of situations, if she has a trigger to it, if she's like, actually, I didn't love that. And all of a sudden you're like, I've been saying this joke for 10 years. Like, what is wrong now? Blah,
but it's
blah,
not
blah.
funny anymore.
It's not funny
anymore. It's not funny right now.
Because we are, again, our tolerance for BS and things like that changes dramatically. So it really has, it's not to be offensive to you or because like she is becoming a new person, and you have to be able to support that growth and understand what's happening.
And that you as the partner are also about to become a new person.
Exactly.
You're going to get a new title, right? You're going to become dad or poppy or
whatever,
ma, like whatever, right? Like your role, you're getting assigned a new role too. And so from day to day, in the back of her brain, she's evaluating your readiness for that role. She already picked you. Like, settle down. You don't need to feel threatened. But like, you know, as you said, like, hopefully like you've chosen to have a baby with this person. And so you've already thought about a lot of this stuff, but there's that constant reevaluation happening inside of her brain. Like, are you a safe person? Are you going to protect me and this baby? You know, babies don't need you to be funny. Like, we might need you to be funny. We might normally love that you're funny, but in this moment, I need you to be the protector. I need you to be a provider. I need you to be the cleaner. I need you to
be steady. I need you to be a constant, consistent thing in my life.
There may be moments where, yes, I need you to be the levity because I am freaking out about something that I probably don't need to be freaking out about. Thank you for your levity. But that's the thing is your behavior from day to day reaffirming the choice that she made to have a human with you? Or is she in the back of her head going, oh my God, what did I do? What have I done? He can't even like get the groceries. We're all going to starve to death when this baby gets here. Like, that's what's happening in our brains. And we become a little bit like, yes, hypervigilant, but perhaps a little bit irrational, perhaps a little bit, it's not intentional. And we're not literally sitting there going, oh my God, he's doing this so wrong. It's not an intentional judgment. It is that the brain has to constantly assess the threat, and not because you're a threat, but if you're not a threat, then what are you? Right. And so there are, like, you know, we look at other mammals and it's like, the the male is often not present
Yeah.
because it's like, one, they're a threat.
Yep.
Or two, like, are you bringing anything to the table?
Mhm.
No, well then fine, I got this on my own.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
I think that for partners, like we can talk about, like, appreciate that all these changes are happening. Hopefully that, you know, if partners are listening, this isn't the only information that you gather, right? It is why it's important for partners to attend any and all educational opportunities, workshops and classes about pregnancy and birth. It is important for partners to also read books or listen to books or listen to podcasts. You know, we see so many people during pregnancy are constantly reading and listening and information gathering and trying to educate themselves and understand things. Is your partner also doing that?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're kind of not on a level playing field from day to day, where if you don't understand what's happening in her brain and in her body, it's you're making it harder on yourself to support her in the way that she needs because you don't understand what's happening.
Definitely.
And so, you know, you also, like, maybe you're not tuning in to every baseball game all season. Maybe you're not listening to your favorite funny guy podcasts all day, every day, right? Like you also need to invest some time and some energy into being the best next version of you, because you're this role's coming at you.
You're in this together.
Yes. And so, but the role that you play, the ways that you support, they are different, but you have to understand physiologically what is happening inside of her body in order to understand how to best support. And part of that is knowing them as your partner, right? Where maybe sometimes they really just do want you to be the comedian. Or they really need you to take over the physical tasks that, like you said, bringing in a cleaning person. Like if she is normally the house cleaner because she needs the house to be tidy all the time, and now it's not because she doesn't have the energy or she's exhausted after being at work all day or whatever that looks like, then the house is also messy. Like her nervous system is never reaching a state of regulation because that's in the background and that needs to be done all the time. And then there's the guilt that it's not being done, but I can't do it, but now I'm stressed out about it. Like, if you know that that's the type of person your partner is, then you don't need to know the nuances of pregnancy to understand that that's how you support them. But it's not always that obvious. And so I think that's sometimes where, yes, having an understanding of what this process looks like for them physically and emotionally and in terms of brain changes is really important. If you want to be an equal and supportive partner, this is one of the things that you need to understand and educate yourself about, so that you can more easily and effectively be that equal partner.
Definitely. And what I love that I'm seeing more and more is that partners, they do want to be an active participant in this, but for years there hasn't really been an avenue for them to figure out how to be supportive. And you know, sometimes you see it in your childhood with your other like father figures and things like that. Majority of the time they don't get that. But being able to find these resources is really important. And like you said, books and things like that too, attending workshops and classes and talking with your friends who have had kids before and all that kind of stuff too. Like you have to gather this information too. So a lot of it falls on the woman. Remember, her brain is shrinking. And so for her to have to do all of this research on top of it, like, man, that already right there is like, cool, I can't count on him to do this, so I have to do it myself. And then it just continues this cycle. And that's where disconnection happens. And we want our partners to be so connected to each other because we want them to have a more empowering experience than we've seen in the past. And that's kind of, you know, our goal with all this stuff. But like, that's the whole heart of this is so you both feel really empowered going into it, and we don't minimize things and we don't write it off. And it's really creating this new way of doing relationships and this new way of doing parenting and walking through this entire experience.
And I think, like, you know, in talking about that connection and how do we build that connection, I think it's different stages are more challenging for couples or co-parents for different reasons. But I think if you are coming into a pregnancy or in pregnancy, find that you are having a hard time connecting on certain things. You don't have to agree on everything, right? Especially if you come from different backgrounds, you have different experiences or expectations and how you parent. Some of this stuff doesn't come up until it comes up, but if you can find ways to continually communicate and connect on things throughout the pregnancy, you're setting yourselves up for at least you've got that locked in, that process locked in before birth and before baby gets here and before some of these potentially difficult or challenging situations come up where you got to figure out how to get on the same page, right? Sometimes it means one person yields a little bit. Sometimes it means another person yields a little bit. A conversation came up in one of my online moms groups just in the last couple of days where the parents fundamentally disagree on spanking. And the mom is like, absolutely not, under no circumstances, and backs it up with like, you know, recent research shows. And the dad is like, research, like, so what, you trust the internet more than you trust me? You trust this random person who made an article more than me? Like, I'm the other parent. Like, what I want should go. She's like, well, but I don't want that. Like they're at a really, really difficult impasse on, you know, a part of parenting that if you're not on the same page, like this isn't, there's no middle ground with this, right? There's a lot of things with parenting where there's no middle ground. It's yes or it's no. And so if you haven't had difficult conversations, if you haven't talked through and resolved issues where you maybe don't align, it'll come to a head at some point. And another topic of, you know, women not expressing, not standing up for, not insisting on their own, you know, desires. We'll get to that another time, but it's, yes, understanding what's happening is step one for you as the partner. So if you don't understand, because you're not having conversations or arguments or discussions with the same person you were having discussions with a year ago, right? And she may have been all on board with something. I think this happens both ways where, you know, we did talk about how we wanted to raise our kids 5 years ago when we first started dating, or we first started getting serious, or we first started talking about marriage. You're allowed to change your mind. And I think for moms, especially because of the neurochemical changes, I do think ideas shift.
Totally.
And so I think that then can be, he's like, well, wait a minute, I thought we were on the same page here. And you're like, well, we were, but now we're not. Right. Let's talk about it. And that's really hard. And it could be him too. He could have been like, yeah, sure, because he didn't care. So he was not even like going along with it in a misleading way, but was like, well,
we'll figure it out when we get there.
Or even like really in his brain is like, yeah, that sounds great. Like he really thinks he's on board with it. And then in the moment is like, oh, wait, no, that doesn't feel right. I do want to do that, or I don't want to do that. Right. So I think that, yes, like you, as the partner, you've got to understand that like, it's a little bit of a moving target, which is challenging. So like, you've got to keep learning, and you've got to keep growing, and you've got to keep being open to the fact that you're both changing and growing and evolving into the new version of yourself that will be a parent. But continuing to talk, continuing to connect, continuing to try as best you can to see it from the other person's perspective. I do think that is some of the pruning and whatnot too, of like, I don't care about anybody else's perspective. So it's that kind of those two things kind of are going to butt heads a little bit there. And it can create friction in a relationship, because at the end of the day, it's like, but I've got to keep the baby alive. Like, he's also trying to keep the baby alive. Don't get me wrong. But not from the same deep-seated biological standpoint that mom is.
Definitely. I love this. Love these conversations. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there for today's episode. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. We read them. We want to know what you guys are thinking. If you just want to leave us a heart, that would be great too. Or share us with anybody that you think could benefit from any of our conversations that we have here. The biggest takeaway that we want you to remember is that these changes are happening for a reason. They're very positive, and they're to set you up fundamentally for this new phase that you are going through. All right, you guys, we will catch you on the next episode of the Village Talks podcast. Thanks for listening. If you found today's episode helpful, you can subscribe, share it with a friend, or leave a review. It helps this podcast reach the families who need it most. You can find us at Belly Bliss in Denver and online for resources, workshops, and support. Until next time, take care of your body and trust its wisdom.